Hey everybody, Tony Katz, Craig Robinson for TIR Nation, TIRNation.com, joined by the host of Schiff Radio and the author of Crash Proof, Peter Schiff himself. Young man, look at you.
Well, I'm not as young as I used to be.
In South Carolina. First of all,
how you doing?
Exactly what brings you here, aside from the debate, aside from the primary, are there any companies that we're going to be raiding while we're here in South Carolina? Do you have any money advice for Romney about how to move things to the islands for safe harbor?
Well, I would like to be able to invest some of Mitt Romney's money for him, but he's not a client
yet.
But well, maybe. You never know. Although I'm not expecting him to open up an account, considering that I'm supporting Ron Paul rather than Mitt Romney. But I am meeting a client of mine here tomorrow who lives here in South Carolina. But what really brought me down here were the debates. Just trying to go where the action is and support Ron.
We'll get to Ron Paul in a second, but let me ask you about Romney. This conversation where he won't show the tax returns, then he goes about saying that he's only paying 15%, the capital gains tax rate. Do you think that this is going to be another class warfare attack on him for not paying enough taxes, or do you think he's going to be able to defend the position of these are investments, this is a tax rate, what do you want from me?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, if a lot of his income is coming from dividends, well, the corporations already paid the taxes before they passed on the after-tax portion to the shareholders. So if you own a corporation, and you're getting a dividend, maybe you're paying 15% on the personal level, but the corporation paid 35% before they paid you. So that counts as because corporations don't pay the taxes directly. They simply take the money from their shareholders. So in that case, he's paying a lot of taxes. Now, if the taxes are the result of capital gains where he sold appreciated shares, well, then he does have a lower rate. But remember, he had to earn the money that he invested. He paid income taxes on it when he earned it. Now he's being taxed again on the capital gain. So he has to defend, the tax code. But I think that we should lower taxes on everybody. And I don't think you should just have a low tax rate on capital. We should have a lower tax rate on labor as well. So the problem is Mitt Romney doesn't work anymore. See, I pay a much higher tax rate than 15%. I'm paying better than 40%.
Still working.
Well, I still have a job. Only a small percentage of my income is taxed at 15%. Right. The vast majority, 90% of my income is taxed at 35% federal, 7% state. Plus, I have to pay 3% Medicare tax on my entire income. So you add it all up, it's well over 40%. So I could use a break.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
When you see that he hasn't divulged these tax returns, does that bother you at all? Do you think that's a problem? Do you think it's an issue?
No, I don't. I don't really care how much money he has, and I know he has a lot of money. I mean, he was born into a wealthy family, and I got nothing wrong with that. I mean, we'd all like to be born rich. It beats being born poor. So I'm not going to hold that against him. That he had that silver spoon in his mouth, and I think he made some money on his own too. So he didn't just simply inherit and live off of daddy's money. But that's not an issue. I mean, my problems with Mitt Romney have nothing to do with his personal wealth.
And you talked about the fact that you're here for Ron Paul. Ron Paul in the debate, Myrtle Beach, 0%. That's a good tax rate. It worked until 1913. I think.
Well, they asked him. Well,
is he right? Is he wrong?
Well, they asked him, what do you think the ideal tax rate should be? And that's ideal for me, 0. I mean, it worked for the founding fathers. Right. In fact, we built a really wealthy country without an income tax. There was no income tax until 1913. But even when they imposed it initially, the top rate was 7%, and you had to earn Mitt Romney type money before you even paid it. Right. The average American, the middle class, did not pay any income taxes at all until 1943. That's when the withholding tax came in. That was to help win the Second World War. We won the war. Why are we still paying the tax? So, I would love to be able to roll back government to the days when we didn't have an income tax. But in order to do that, we have to dramatically shrink government. Right. If we want to have this big government that is involved in every facet of our lives, it spends all this money, then we need an income tax. But if you don't want to have big government, if you want to have freedom, if you want to have prosperity, then we don't need an income tax because we can shrink government.
As a Ron Paul supporter, what are you expecting out of him on Saturday? I mean, we had a conversation earlier today. It's not going to affect whether he's in or out of the race, but what do you want to see out of Ron Paul in South Carolina?
I'd like to see him win, but if he can't win, second place. But just do as well as he can, get as much support as he can, expand the movement, get more people in the fold, have as much influence as he can on the Republican Party, because I haven't been a big fan of the Republican Party for a long time. I mean, I voted enthusiastically for Reagan, but he disappointed me as a president. I haven't had a Republican candidate to enthusiastically support since then. So we need to change the Republican Party to make it more appealing to people like me who actually want smaller government. A lot of the Republicans want big government. They just want it branded differently than the Democrats. But we need to have a party where people who really want limited government, who believe in the Constitution, who believe in the sound money, we need to have a party for them. It can't just be the Libertarian Party because they're not going anywhere. So we got to change the Republican Party.
You don't think Ron Paul, there's any threat of a third party run? You think this is more of a continuation to mold and shape the Republican Party?
Well, I like the threat because maybe it'll force the Republican Party to do some things that they might otherwise have done. So I like the fact that threat is out there and that it's hanging over the head of whoever the nominee might be if it's not Ron Paul. And so maybe that gives him more influence over the party at the convention. Maybe that will give him some influence.
Are we now
what
to
about
the
the VP, right? Maybe he has a lot of influence on who that.
Are we now to the point where Ron Paul third party is actually a threat? Is that the moment that we just got to?
Well, I think that the Republicans would view it that way. I mean, clearly, the race is going to be close. I mean, it's not going to be a landslide either way. And the Ron Paul supporters are, very passionate, very hardworking. There's a big block of people. The Republicans can't afford to just give that up, especially since, some of the people who are going towards Ron Paul might actually vote Obama. And it's not that
we don't have enough time for that conversation. We'll get into it and we'll tell you about it. That's Peter Schiff. He's the author of Crash Proof 2.0. Get it at Amazon.com, wherever fine books are sold. That's Craig Robinson. I'm Tony Katz. This is TIR Nation. We're coming to you live from Charleston, South Carolina, here at the historic Courtyard Marriott, and we thank them for their hospitality. Stay tuned to TIRNation.com for the latest breaking events and happenings from South Carolina, the debate, and the primaries. Catch the next video, everybody.